Professor, may we begin in the Latvia of your childhood? You are 8 years old. Tell me something about your family, your parents, the circumstances of your childhood.
Well, I was born in Latvia, and I'm 8 years old now.
Yes.
I had been fortunate to be born in a prominent Latvian family. My father is the chief of staff of the Latvian army.
Very prominent family.
He is also a graduate from a Russian military school from the time when Latvia was under Russia or Russian influence.
Right.
And if you wanted to join the military, it had to be the Russian military. He served a short while in a Russian division and then entered the higher Russian academy, military academy.
Was it already Soviet Russia or was this before?
This is Tsarist.
Tsarist Russia.
Tsarist Russia. And he graduated, was I guess equivalent to lieutenant, with specialty in staff work.
Staff work. Does that mean managerial skills?
This is really the operation part.
Understand.
And assigned to the whole unit. And this was 1918, when World War I broke out. And he had made a good career up till then, and then he was in the Russian army which entered Germany. The Russian campaign was total disaster. They used their railroad system so efficiently and so fast that they managed to defeat 2 Russian armies, not divisions. These were armies.
So your father is fighting with the losers.
My father is fighting with the losers. He gets captured by the Germans and spends several years in as a German prisoner of war.
Right.
By the way, I said it was 1918. It was 1914 when
1914.
when
Yes.
the war broke out.
Understood. I'm because we don't have very much time, I
Yes.
want to get you born, so he's going to have to leave captivity and make his way back to Latvia, yes?
Yeah. The thing I want to also inject here, that the German treatment of captured officers was very good, and so he that was a time of education for him.
Before he really hadn't had very much high education.
No. And that really was kind of graduate school.
Hmm.
When the war ended, prisoners were released. He returned to Latvia, which in 1918 declared its independence and operated as a sovereign country. He joined the Latvian army, which was fighting remnants of German and Russian units who were in Latvia. For his service during the war, he was awarded a nice country estate called Leston. It was a lovely manor house, nicely maintained and nice park setting, and with a farm attached to it. We spent our winters in Riga, going to school. I was attending French lycée, as did my sister, who is 2 years old, is 2 years old.
Ah, yes, good.
We spent winters in Riga, as I said, and summers
At this
on the
estate.
country estate. And that was just
Heaven.
wonderful.
Wonderful.
And there was usually thrown in a governess for a while of the summer to learn French and German.
And the German will come into very good use in your life. But so you are speaking Latvian in the family.
Yes.
But you are being trained in French and German. In the school, the language was?
There was no foreign language, I guess,
So the school was Latvian?
at that level.
In Latvia?
Latvian, yes.
Because we are really looking into the history of your mind, I wonder what kind of an educational emphasis there was when you were in that first school. Mostly the humanities, was there any science?
Well, it was a French lycée. Sorry, I should have said French
Yeah.
was a foreign language.
Right.
And I was in the French lycée because my father was a graduate from the Superior École de Guerre.
Oh,
He and my wife, my mother,
your mother, yes.
spent 2 years in Paris. He was in the same class as Charles de Gaulle. So I have lovely pictures.
Two great military figures.
Yeah,
Yes, your father and Charles de Gaulle.
yes. So that also dates him.
Yes, but also affects the life around you. What I begin to wonder, because it will be so important later in your life, is there an interest in science, either in your family or in the schools? Is there an interest in technology at home? Is there anything that is not only the humanities?
Well, my father very, very strongly believed in education. And so that even quite a young age, clearly I was planning to be a military officer. What
Natural.
else? What
Yes,
else?
of course.
Well, anyway, so life was wonderful.
Right.
Unfortunately, roughly when I was 12 years old,
Okay. Very important age.
yes, all this changed. As we all know, that Hitler wanted to attack Poland, and to keep the Russians from getting involved
Right.
on the Polish side. They concluded the Ribbentrop Molotov?
Yeah, but the great,
Non-aggression pact,
right, exactly.
which divided Poland between Russia and Germany. And the agreement included Hitler's agreement that Stalin has a free hand in the Baltic.
Yes.
And Latvia is one of the 3 Baltic countries
Right.
along the coast of the Baltic Sea.
Yes. So this was a disaster.
This was a disaster. First, the Russians requested bases for Air Force and naval forces, for their naval forces. And my father had the misfortune of being asked to be the liaison between the Russian forces and the Latvian government.
Right. They would assume maybe his sympathy toward Russian because he had been in a Russian military college.
Yes, and served in the Russian army.
Exactly. So they would have thought he would be a good bridge.
I don't know
Yeah, of course.
how
They made this decision.
this choice was made,
Right.
but anyway, for him actually it was a bitter pill. Well, when his job ended, he went in retirement and was arrested. He went out to Listene in winter in our state and was arrested.
Yes.
And we did not know what happened to him except that he had been sent to Moscow.
Mm.
Well, we had no information whatsoever. For me, it was really a great help that if I would have known what happened to my father,
Yes.
it would have been tragic.
Yes. Devastating.
Yeah. Only when the Soviet Union collapsed and the KGB files and so on became open did we found the exact dates
Yeah.
when he was tried and convicted, and shortly after that executed
But
in
you
Moscow.
But you did not know as a child.
I didn't know only when the Soviet Union collapsed.
Yes. So again, because I want to begin to develop your life, this tragic moment, your father disappears. The family, does your education stop in the war?
No. So anyway, father is gone.
Gone.
Less than is nationalized or whatever.
Yes.
They asked my mother to sign it over, and there was attached a price, whatever. And she said, I'm not signing anything. I mean, this is silly, what you're offering me. No, it's not like money wasn't offered, but I really don't know why she had to sign, but she didn't.
Yes.
And so Lestana was gone. Otherwise, we knew that my mother and my sister,
Yes.
not me, were on the list to be deported to Siberia. I was very offended.
That you were not on the list.
Anyway, the war went very well in Poland, but the Russians then, shortly after they got their bases and so on, simply occupied. I think all of the Baltic countries,
Yes.
but Latvia was occupied. Schools went on. I learned about the glories of the Soviet Union
Yes.
and learned some Russian.
Yes.
Uh,
But no
I
science.
think there were still some French lessons, but not very much. The French lycée became public school, I think, 49.
Right.
And we were thrown out of the big building where the institute, the lycée used to be.
But you see why I'm interested in whether you were getting any mathematics, any science at this time, because at least the Russian system had that in strength.
Clearly they didn't have much time to change things.
Of course.
I must comment that in all my education, wherever I was, and it was in 3 different countries, the teachers were good, very good actually. And so that the teaching of mathematics was good, and my interest in history was awakened. And
Even though the times are so difficult and in a way tragic,
yes,
I'm wondering whether when something like a mentor enters your life, when does somebody begin to discover your talents? Is it this early, still in Latvia, that some teacher sees you as maybe a mathematician of the future or something like that, or are you not exceptional at this stage?
I don't think I was exceptional. As a matter of fact, so much was going on
Yes.
that school,
Was the least of it.
yeah,
Yeah. History was overwhelming.
Yes. Well, about a year later, Hitler attacks Germany. I'm sorry,
No, attacked the
Soviet Union.
Yes.
And, within a matter of weeks, Germans are in Riga. We are under German occupation, just leaving Russian occupation. And clearly, if you were Jewish, life was horrible. Yeah. But otherwise, Germans were far more rational
And the Soviets.
than the Soviets. In administrating, they let the Latvian administration run the country
Huh.
as long as you delivered food quotas and so on.
Right, of course.
And school continues. French, Russian are out.
Yes.
German is in,
Is it?
which delighted me because
You already had some German
yes,
from your nanny.
yes.
And also your mother and your sister are no longer threatened by going to Siberia.
Yes, but it's strange that they never were worried about it,
Huh.
which isn't clear to me. Fatalism.
Yeah, right.
Well,
So now it's 1943, let us say. I mean, just to pick a period of the German occupation. Was
well,
that-
43, the war wasn't going terribly well for the Germans.
Okay.
But if you jump to 1944,
Okay.
then the war isn't going well at all. And we are on our country estate, which was returned. So Lestana was once for a year Russian,
Yes.
now was returned and was being worked, and food rations, not whatever was demanded,
Right.
were delivered. Food might have been short. Everything was rationed, ration cards. And it was wonderful to have Leston,
Yes.
which was a working farm.
Yes. Yes.
Well, anyway, so war doesn't go well. We start hearing artillery duels in Leston.
Yeah.
A German division takes over our manor house,
Right.
and we are given left a few rooms at the end which are easily closed off. And the officers are very gallant and very respectful. They knew my father was a general, and so life is okay, but you know that when you can hear artillery, you couldn't hear small arms yet.
Right.
And anyway, the general, German general, invites my mother in and says, Frau Generalin, things are not going well for us. I will supply you transportation to Ventspils, the only harbor which was still open, and a ship will leave on such and such a day. So we all get packed in a Lastwagen, and we drive to the harbor, try. The German driver, they should have used a Latvian who would know exactly how to get there. Get lost. Our ship leaves.
Without you.
Without us. Well, phone calls and so on. There will be another ship a day or two later.
Another ship arrives.
Another ship arrives.
You're on it.
We get on the ship.
And it's going to Germany, certainly.
It's supposed to go to New Orleans.
Okay.
Because we had some people. Sorry. No, sorry. It's going to Königsberg. Sorry,
Yeah.
German ship. And we had a reasonably good friend, a Latvian-born Nazi Party member, chemistry professor in Marburg. When he visited us in Lestene, he said to my mother, if you ever are in trouble, come to Marburg.
Come to Marburg.
It's a lovely university town.
How old are you now? This is now 45?
With middle school.
Middle school, okay.
Early part of middle school.
Yes.
We go on a ship, land in Danzig, by train. By the way, that was well organized. Where do you want to go? Marburg. Why are you going to Marburg?
We have a friend there, yes. A distinguished professor, yes.
Yeah. Oh, yes. My mother had a recommendation letter from the Commanding General.
Yes.
And we go by train through Berlin, which was really a total shock.
It was devastated. It was,
Totally.
yes.
There weren't even streets sometimes, just a rebel kind of flattened down. And I was impressed how the chimneys were still standing in many houses, or one or two walls, but nothing
else.
Anyway,
You
we
make
go
it to
through
Marburg.
there, go to Marburg, had a one-room apartment which the professor organized,
Mhm.
and we get a permit to stay. Many refugees were not given permissions to stay. And short while later, well, Christmas and all that passes, and early in May 45, the Americans occupy, liberate, whatever your preference is in
Right.
choosing one. And
Again, in the midst of this chaotic history, I still want to educate you. Are you placed in a good situation for education yet, or do you lose years?
Marburg is a university city.
Ah.
But schools were not yet open in Germany. But in a displaced person school, a Latvian high school opens.
You go to a Latvian high school in Marburg,
No, in Detmold,
but in Germany.
in Germany.
Yes.
And very nice. But it's in the British occupation zone. My mother is still in Marburg. So
You're separated.
we're separated, and crossing the occupation zones is not easy.
Yes.
So there is Latvian school in Hanau.
Amazing.
I get in that school. I choose to give up Latin and Greek and have physics and chemistry.
Without guidance, this is your own impulse.
Yes, that's my sister who didn't think I could make it in Latin or...
So as a secondary, a consolation prize, she said go into physics and chemistry.
No, well, look, at that time, the atomic bomb and so on, physics was great. So, at Marburg, I finished a Latvian high school, and I'm a physics student.
And you're qualified. I mean, you take it early enough so that you have a future in it. You can go to
Yes.
university in physics.
Well, they admitted me, and I'm a physics student. And it was an interesting time. Professors were good.
These were the German professors that stayed, still had positions, or were these other professors who had come in?
No, these were German professors.
They were still in place?
Yes.
Yes. And your German is excellent
Oh, by then,
by then.
yeah.
So you are now studying physics in German in Marburg.
Yeah.
Now again, I'm still looking for the emergence of the very, very good technology and scientist and mathematician. When does he show up? Do we discover him at university?
He knows it.
You were confident.
Yes.
Yes.
Whether I really had a reason to be.
Oh, no, sometimes confidence is enough to push you.
Yes.
So you know you...
Anyway, so clearly we want to get out of Germany.
Right,
Germany was a sad place at that time.
right.
Just when we left, they introduced the Währungsreform. And Germany really started picking up. But we went to United States. Again, we had a friend sponsor us.
Before I let you go, I want to know, did you graduate?
No,
You didn't get your degree?
no.
No.
I got my 4 diploma.
Okay.
I went in and took the exams, which was early, because I was there only 2.5 years,
Okay.
counting semesters.
Right. So you had certainly some university education,
Yes.
no degree, but it was time to leave, and you had the opportunity to go to the United States.
Yes. We leave. We have again ship trouble. We are on an ice. I don't know who built them, Kaiser or somebody. Troop ships. We have nice layered bunks.
Yes.
And a big storm hits. And the B deck of the ship cracks. Well, I watched a very interesting play. You can see how the crack advances. I'm surely we were not supposed to be there. A bunch of sailors and officers, and one just makes a big cross on the deck, a little bit ahead of the crack. And they drill a nice hole, and the crack goes around it. Finally, after on third try, the crack enters that, and stops, because it now can open and close, and as later it was reported, this was touch and go. Anyway, so we cannot continue very far. We have another ship stand by and go with us. We go into New York. In New York, by that time, there is an identical ship of ours. And we park across them. And they just said, go to your bunks, go to your numbered bunks. We all basically walk over. And we go to New Orleans. There we go on a train and go to Kansas City, which was a destination.
This is where the Latvian friend lived.
Yes.
Yes. And what was his position in society? Another professor or a businessman?
In Latvia, he was an architect.
Okay.
And he was a young couple in probably say very late 30s or so. And he was working in an architectural firm. So, not yet American success, but coming.
Yes, on the way.
On the way.
So I'm consumed by your education. So what happens to you as a mind?
Okay. University of Kansas City gives me a fellowship.
In physics.
That's the problem. University of Kansas City is now University of Missouri at Kansas City. They look at my Studienbuch and conclude that I have a bachelor's degree. Now, I'm not sure how one does that in 2.5 years. But they say, and here is a fellowship. I'm finally recognized. Recognized.
Did they talk
Unfortunately,
to you? Oh, go ahead.
there is no graduate program in physics.
So
But there is a good one in mathematics. You will be happy in mathematics.
another accident in your life, really. If there had been a physics faculty, you would have stayed in physics, probably.
Oh, yes,
No question.
absolutely.
But you are forced now to specialize in mathematics.
Okay, a year later, I have a master's degree
In mathematics.
in mathematics. And now comes the decision, what do I do now? And I said, surely my father would say, get a PhD.
Yes.
And so I applied to a few schools. By the way, in Kansas City, I worked as a chauffeur, just to chauffeur Dr. Haschinger's wife's mother to church and so on. And I said, oh, I know how to drive, but I don't have a driver's license. Dr. Haschinger, former dean of the Kansas Medical School, said, don't worry about that. Did I worry? No, I drove the lady
Without a license.
without driver's license. Look, there, things like that, when I mentioned that to
Right.
some American friends, they were not terribly surprised. Anyway, so I have a master's degree,
Yes.
and I applied to several schools, including Caltech. People said, apply to Caltech, apply to Caltech.
Wasn't this a long shot? I mean, Caltech, it's the height.
They not only gave me a teaching assistantship and $90 to get there. I said, those people understand my situation. I applied also to the Lincoln University. Lincoln, yeah. Anyway, which is reasonably known agricultural school.
And why would you apply to that?
I'm glad that question occurred, because our president had a degree from there.
Yes.
And since we were somewhat through my wife's, through marriage, related to the president. So he came to our Christmases and things like that. And I heard a lot about
This university.
Lincoln, no, Nebraska, whatever university. But I thought, if the president went there, wow.
Don't tell me you
Well,
really...
they admitted me.
Yes, but was there a chance you would go there instead of Caltech?
No. If I wouldn't have been Caltech, I would have probably gone to University of Kansas.
Okay.
Respectable.
So Caltech admits you in mathematics, and that's the specialty you declare?
No.
No. What do they admit you in? What graduate?
Well, I said I wanted to get a PhD in mathematics or physics.
Back to physics.
They looked at my background and wisely decided that I knew more mathematics than physics.
So they directed you.
They said, I don't know how they chose, but they said, you will be very happy as a mathematician.
And they were right?
They were right. 4 years later, I had a PhD. My first job was at Cornell.
I'm not going to let you take your first job until you tell me what direction in mathematics did you go for your PhD? What were you choosing as your field within mathematics?
Oh, very interesting. My advisor was Dilworth, famous lattice theory guy. And he gave me a problem. The embedding problem for partition lattices. Partitions form lattices, show that every other lattice, finite lattice, can be embedded, picked as a sublattice from the partitions.
Mm-hmm.
And I can only say one thing. That was a bitch of a problem. And I smelled that pretty early, that it's going to be tough slugging. And partitions are things where you divide a set in totally disjoint sets. And I looked and worked with this and finally said, what the hell? Why don't allow at least one point together for them? Just out of poking around. And suddenly again, it's a lattice and the same embedding problem nobody has worked on. Well, two things. I solved the embedding problem for that. And then I realized what mathematical object insists that only one point between two of its sets. Well, that's a geometry. If 2 points are together, it's a line, you know. And so there I have an embedding theorem for the lattice of geometries. Mm. And now it has a framework. Mm. And a few more theorems about lattices of geometries on Dilworset have it written up. And that meant somebody typed, and it's a thin 24 or whatever page dissertation.
But a brilliant solution.
Totally my invention. Yes. Of the problem and the techniques to solve it.
So this looks like a promising career.
That, to me, really said that Caltech taught me how to do research. Not by lecturing, not by just having it happen.
And posing an impossible problem for you to solve.
No. The partition embedding problem remained unsolved for several decades. I kept reading mathematical reviews, fearful that somebody will solve it within a year or two.
So now I will let you graduate. For your graduate degree, your doctorate. You have it after this remarkable thesis. So where do you go next?
Well, it's very interesting. In many things just happened. What I had to take and so on. And, you know, the Germans and the Russians meddled with the world. And I was trying to get an education.
Right.
Well,
you need a career too.
Oh yeah, and I was going to have an academic career.
No question. You were going to the university permanently. Okay.
And Professor Walker from Cornell just happened to visit Caltech. Dilworth just happened to mention 2 students who packed their cars. I took my mother with me, and we took off for Kansas City in the mathematics department as instructors.
Which is the first step on the ladder.
Yes. Yes.
But you're not there long.
I spent there 2 days.
2 days.
Oh, sorry.
No, 2 years.
2 years.
2 years.
And go to Cornell, have a great time there.
What do they invite you to teach?
We were the new troops. They had converted calculus from big class to classes of 20. And we got those 2 classes of 20 to teach calculus first year. Second year was already more selective. And at that time, Dilworth mentioned a manager from GE Research Lab who was looking for people he really was looking for computer scientists, but he didn't know it. He thought,
Would the term computer scientist even be common at this point?
no.
No. So he wouldn't even have had the phrase, really. He wouldn't have even had the phrase, I want a computer scientist.
Well, the unit he was given to manage, he named Information Studies section.
Interesting.
And it was mostly information, but there was Shannon's information theory and the success in World War II
Yes.
with radar and cryptography and all kinds of things. If you didn't look profoundly enough, didn't look hard enough, it looked like information. But it was digital, and it was computation.
Right.
So he said, there's this guy, and he's just what you're looking for.
Why are you tempted? You want a university career as a researcher. What are they offering you that lures you outside of academia?
Well, I spent a summer at the GE Research Lab. That did it.
That did it. Well, what were the conditions that appealed to you? What was...
Well, I wrote a research paper during the summers there. It's not a profound thing I did, but there were so many interesting problems. And one could just feel that there are things which need to be formalized. We're supposed to be the masters of abstraction.
Right.
Well, computer science was then already started, little blossoms came up. And I accepted G-Lab, spent there 7 years.
Is this, the first year there is in 1958, maybe, something like that? The late 50s? I'm just interested in terms of the history of knowledge, where computers are. So anyway, it's the 50s.
I could calculate it, but on my fingers, but let's...
Actually, I can look and see it was 58. It
Yeah,
was 58. And you'll be there 7 years, and these are going to shape really your intellectual life and reputation
yes.
forever.
Well, actually, our Turing Award contribution, which I did
Comes from that work.
Dick Stearns, was done at GE Research Labs.
So bring me to the point of that amazing insight which led to your award. You were there for some years. Where is your curiosity taking you?
Now,
Yes, at General Electric. Yes.
well, the work which we did, which was really exciting and so on.
Yes.
You know, there is a Turing machine,
Yes.
which Turing defined and showed, which Gödel already had in a sense, that any sufficiently complex mathematical system, and you can do addition and multiplication and logical
Right.
decisions, will always have theorems which are true but not provable in that system. You define your system, and I will write down a theorem which has no proof in it. Okay. Very potent result. And Turing used the machine to show that this is the case. He basically showed that you cannot figure out whether a Turing machine will ever halt on any input, or whether it will halt on some input. There will be always some theorem which you cannot prove. And Dick Stearns, we sat, and at one point really concentrated on what Turing did, the Turing machine. And in no time at all, we could prove all kinds of undecidability results. And we started looking at how rugged is this model. What happens if I give you more tapes?
Yes.
Nothing. What if I allow you to, nothing changes. If I give you a Turing machine which runs around on a flat tape, probably a little bit faster you can compute. Faster? Okay. What if we change the machine in other ways? And we can always prove that roughly within a square of the time which you could previously do, you can do it on the new model. And so we said, well, so that's a good model. Let everybody tinker with it. They still will be roughly in the same neighborhood in speed. And not only that, we could prove all kinds of lovely things. how much we can get these differences, that most of them can be even further compressed if you just tinker with the programs. And we boldly defined computational complexity of algorithms. What is it? It is a set of all algorithms which you can compute in a given bound, like n square. That means that when the problem is n long, it'll take you n square steps. So give me a function, and the class will be all the computations which can be done in this time.
Yes.
Small changes, no effect. Those the machine can encode in the machine. And so basically, it's a rugged and good model for complexity. It gives you a definition. So every algorithm you propose, you may not know what the time bound is, but you can prove some time bound. Then you have at least that kind of information.
Yes.
For example, I don't think we even have a final bound how fast matrices can be multiplied. N cube is what a school child would give you an algorithm, but it's less than that. It's not cube needed.
Yes.
And so there are famous names attached who got smaller exponent and so on.
You publish very soon after your conclusions about this,
Yes.
about your work with the Turing machine and so forth. It's received as revolutionary, or at least groundbreaking.
Yes. You can have an two views. Oh yes, it's diagonalization again. You know, surely we had invent things that now we had to have machines which run in a certain time to mimic whatever bound you want. And then you can prove that if I give you a little bit more computing research, you'll get something else. Well, there are lots of interesting theorems there. But, you know, in his Turing Award lecture, Karp says in his Turing lecture that once you read our paper, that you know cannot. I don't know exactly what. I mean, I have it.
No, but essentially that you can never think the same way.
Yes.
I think that's what he was celebrating in your insight.
Yes.
So you create, do we say a field, a whole new direction by this?
A field.
A field, which you name.
Yes.
You call it computational complexity.
Yes.
I think there's another school, and again, I'm the innocent in this matter, but there's another school, either the same time or later, which is more likely called abstract computer complexity as opposed to what you were doing. Can you describe the difference?
Manuel Blum.
Ah,
You see, we have a model, a real one, and you can tinker with it and so on. Nobody writes Turing machine programs. They write real programs
yes.
because they know there's always a compiler which will translate in the horrible
Yes.
language. But because programming a Turing machine to do something is really implementing the algorithm. And that somehow the Turing machine was sitting around and people have not realized, or not really what we said, look, this is a very stable model,
Yes.
intuitively satisfying properties. And every algorithm can be programmed on a Turing machine.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But
Yeah.
what is Blum saying?
yeah, Blum, under the influence of Rabin, Michael Rabin, who were that MIT group was well knowledgeable in recursive function theory, really where Turing computability is the essence. But clearly before a Turing machine was invented, such computable things were defined abstractly. And so Blum gives two very simple axioms. What is a computational complexity measure?
Mm.
And what it is basically, I give you a Turing machine. Well, what is it? It can be partial, that it doesn't compute anything for certain, just run forever. Yeah, so, it's just like our model. Okay, it doesn't hold. Okay. Then it either stops or runs forever. That's in the model.
Right.
And he gives these two axioms, and then anything that satisfies them is a complexity measure. So, I'm not sure he says that this works for partial functions. It's valid. Well, it's valid for partial functions. He gives you, say, a Turing machine, and say it will hold for all inputs.
Right.
And he doesn't look at all of the machine, how long it works. He just says it defines a function, and I give another function. You take a function, and I give you another function. No conditions about computability, really. On this guy, for any x I give you, and any n I give you, you can test whether it has stopped in n operations. You can do that here.
Yes.
So if this guy converges, this does. And you can answer, well, if it really stops, you know, in partial functions. So that's a complexity measure.
Yes.
He gives that function, that is what you are interested in, and they are related. If this stops, so does this one.
Mm-hmm. So the two approaches to complexity, computer complexity, are really, they're compatible. I mean,
Oh yes.
these are not competing visions.
Well, it's certainly computing in style. But the thing is, here you can invent all kinds of weird things. And Blum did some very clever things. Kind of weird things.
So not really applicable in
That's right.
specific use.
But you can just say, make this a Turing machine, and this time of Turing machine halting.
Yes.
And you go from you're right back where we are.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So
Because you have such a rich career and we don't have very much time, I want to first ask you at this stage, are you beginning to call yourself a computer scientist and not a mathematician? This is terminology, but it's also Marc's moments in the evolution of a field.
well, I sure have made a living being a computer scientist.
But I mean at the point at the lab when you have come up with this insight, are you still calling yourself a mathematician, or are you beginning to say I'm a computer theorist?
I was a research mathematician.
A research mathematician.
That was my title.
Another very important stage in your career, and that's why I'm using terminology as a transition, is your invitation to come to Cornell after this extraordinary career at GE, to come to Cornell and essentially create a department.
No.
No. Okay, tell me.
They had created it.
They had. Okay.
That's why I came. Because they had $1 million from Sloan Foundation to train computer scientists for the growing need in universities. So Sloan was farsighted.
Was this the first department, so-called?
No. Several universities,
I would guess Carnegie Mellon, maybe, or maybe
Carnegie, clearly MIT didn't have it called computer science, but it was electrical engineering.
Yes.
And that was computer science.
But Cornell was through Sloan, was prepared to call it a Department of Computer Science.
They had decided that that's what it was going to be called.
And they invited you,
Yeah.
and you decided to come. Why?
The same guy, Bob Walker, who,
Initially got you interested in Cornell,
yeah,
and then sent you maybe on to GE, brought you back to Cornell.
yeah.
Wow. And you hesitated, or, I mean, you were in a
No.
research paradise.
He called me and, as he said, Juris, we're starting a new computer science department. We would like to talk to you. I said, okay. And Ellie and I were here. A week or two later, I don't know.
And you haven't left.
Well, I mean here at Cornell, visiting. And it looked so clean. The math department was strongly for it. Physics didn't know what computer science was,
Yes.
and why shouldn't there be telescope science?
Yes.
Because my assistant learned Fortran over the weekend. Yes. And he wrote horrible programs.
Right.
Anyway,
But the university held to this. I mean, it wasn't a controversial decision to establish this.
I
department.
don't know what kind of fights were there.
But by the time
But-
you came,
But mathematics, operations research, we're all for it strongly. Yeah. And Dean Schultz, very clever dean, said, I have space for them. They had space because they had just abolished technical drawing. And so Upson Hall,
became available.
top floor, not all of it, but top floor became with large classrooms, which we carved up quickly.
You needed for yourself, and this will conclude our discussion, but I think it's important to underscore, you needed for yourself a notion of what would advance the field and what was just maybe a trick that could be demonstrated.
Yes.
Is it-
Uh,
Because it's sometimes a difference hard to see.
yes.
And basically, it seems to me that yours has been a career of looking at that, at the essence of the question. Is that fair to say? Rather than the trick pony of it.
Well, you know, some very clever tricks in an operating system I would accept if I would understand. Well, as somebody said, assuming you design a Fortran program, which is twice as fast as the fastest one available, is that a thesis?
Good question. What's the answer?
Just by itself? No. But explanation why is it faster is a thesis.
Thank you very much.